What's up guys, Crave here, and the Division 2 is right around the corner. So I got to try it out during the private and open betas, and it's helped me to decide whether the first few months of the game will be good. In a nutshell, it has been a good experience and gives me a snapshot of the feeling I had when patch 1.8 came out for the first game. So here are my thoughts on whether you should get the Division 2 on the first week. Being an online game, the consistency and the ability to keep the game up is very important. The first outing of Massive often had issues with Delta disconnections and was eventually smoothened out as the months went by. For the Division 2, I had frequent disconnects during the private beta and some goofy rubber banding experiences, and I thought that this was going to be a rough launch for the developer and Ubisoft. The open beta, however, changed my expectations as I did not experience a single disconnect, and it was strange that Massive could actually handle the load compared to the private offering. So if this remains to be the case, then I think Ubisoft can have one of the better launches for an online game. One of the things that didn't completely win me over was the graphics. Sure, it looks slightly better, but to anyone who's played the first game, it looks just about the same. Animations and detail in the world is still very much a product of the Snowdrop engine. Just remove the snowy and cold setting of New York and plaster it with the setting of a now ruined Washington, D.C. It's not bad to look at, but I wish there could have been more ways to up the visuals. In terms of the UI, I like their implementation now. It's practically the same too, but the interface has been tweaked a bit to make way for the new skills and some minor changes. Audio-wise, it's also the same experience. From Isaac's voiceover to the background and environmental sounds, it's pretty much the same. However, unlike the graphics, I always like the audio used in the Division 1, and I'm pleased to say that it's still very good in game number 2. Well, the Division 2, like its predecessor, does have a story. In game number 1, we learn about the outbreak of the green poison virus and how it was strategically spread on a particular Black Friday. The virus was also known as the dollar flu, and it was engineered using samples of different, highly deadly and virulent pathogens. Throughout game number 1, you learn about how quickly it spread and affected the lives of many people. It tells you through recordings and gameplay how different groups took advantage of the situation. Unfortunately, that is all you learn about it in essence. It doesn't fully explain how deadly the effects were and how the fall of systems and smaller societies took place. I feel like there was a missed opportunity in the game in this part. Yeah, it is an online multiplayer game, so I expect the same for the Division 2. It's very focused on rebuilding right now. The taken over DC is in shambles with different factions vying for power. It's practically the same tale as with game number 1. If you were hoping for more depth in game number 2, then the betas don't show much promise. Again, this is just for the betas. The plot is okay, but again, don't expect stellar storytelling for this type of a game. Whether Massive will surprise us with something remains to be seen. With an emphasis on repeatable gameplay elements, you can expect very unique experiences in game number 2. But what's good about this is that it does have the feel of patch 1.8 from the Division 1, and it's not a bad thing. Already in the betas, there is a lot you can do in the game. In the general game world, you have control points to take over, supply drops to secure, and a whole lot of other things. The feel of most activities in the game will seem the same, but I always like the third-person cover aspect. The view really reminds me of the Gears of War series, and it's actually that series that got me excited about game number 1. For the Division 2's general gameplay, you run around talking to people to get your missions, you switch up your equipment and level up to get your loot. You can also mod your equipment and aim for specific stats that suit your playstyle, or at least the way you want to handle your guns. On that part about modding, I noticed that Massive appears to have stopped the seeking for god rolls for mods. From the time I've spent in the betas, it appears that mods provide you with both a negative and positive buff, and you have to choose which mix you'd like to live with. I like this change that they did. It really makes the mod choices have more weight to them. Of course, I only saw some of the greens, or basically the low-level mods, so endgame ones could be different, but if this is the same all throughout, I'll have no issues with it. You also have other side things that you need to get done, as it ties into some of the things that make your agent stronger. So you have to build up the settlements, collect currency called SHD, and those things, basically those other side missions, side activities, allow you to purchase skills and perks which are really useful whether you're into PvE or PvP. On the combat side of things, whether it's PvP or PvE, the cover aspect has been emphasized in the game. This was essential in the PvE aspect of game number 1, but it appears to have been further encouraged in PvP. Personally, I think the main reason for this is the loss of instant heals. In the Division 1, you could risk it normally by running around if you had some instant heals ready to go, or maybe a fellow agent that was powered up, dropping a support station. In the Division 2, you have to plant yourself in one spot if you wanted to heal or raise your armor levels back up to normal. This means it's risky to go solo against 2 other guys, whether that's PvE or PvP. You have to make sure your team had your back to basically distract enemies and other players. If 2 tangos train you out there in the open, then that's pretty much it for your agent. I actually like this change. It encourages team play and enforces the cover system. It does feel slower though, but I think that falls in line with what Massive has intended for the game. Now, on the PvE side of things, sadly, the Division 2 is still game number 1. I was okay with the sponge mobs in the first game, but I was hoping for more variation this time around. It's not that bad since I already have set my expectations. I was just hoping that this time, things would be more creative. I think, and it could just be me, I think the theme of both games limit the amount of mechanics you can put in, or it could just be the snowdrop engine. I'm okay with it, but if you hated the sponginess in the Division 1, or if you're new to the Division or have never appreciated ridiculous health bars, then you're not going to like this second game. In summary, the Division 2 feels like it could have been a huge DLC for the first game. They could have priced it like a really good indie game, which would be about 2/3 the price of what it's selling for now. Yeah, the feel is about the same, but I hope I'm not completely giving the wrong impression. It's one of those cases where they maintained most things since it worked, but they could have done more in terms of variety. Of course, it's just the betas we're looking at, and the feel of the game wasn't obvious even with the pre-made level 30s. What we have so far appears to be the polished up version of the Division 1, placed in a different setting, with some tweaks to make it better. I think it will work for the first 2-something months, but Massive has to have something planned in a future patch, some major content to wow its audience. Well, thanks for checking this out. You got Crave here, and I'll talk to you soon.